terms of arming the Kurds and, financially supporting them, my understanding is that the Iraq government wants everything to go through Baghdad, and then they would ship it out. My own little theory on that is they don't want to see a Kurdish state develop.
They don't.
So how do we get around that? Because I agree with you. I think the Kurds are the ones to lead this fight.
I honestly think that it's time for this country to stand up and give them the recognition that they deserve as an independent entity. They basically function as an independent entity. The problem with Baghdad, the problem with the Kurds is that they are not an Iraqi problem. They are an Iraqi problem, they're a Turkish problem, they are a Syrian problem, and they are an Iranian problem because the Kurdish region is divided between 4 countries.
Right.
But they themselves consider themselves to be an independent, functioning entity. And it doesn't matter if you're Syrian Kurd, Iranian Kurd, Iraqi Kurd, or Turkish Kurd, Kurds are Kurds. And they consider themselves one interconnected people.
Mm-hmm. And they actually have their own standing government. I mean, they have their own, elected officials. It's not officially, quote unquote, recognized, but they have that in place already.
Well, it's not recognized by the UN.
Right.
But there are a number of countries who do recognize the Kurdish Regional Government, KRG, as an independent government. And they recognize Kurdistan as an independent state. And this is kind of a no-brainer for us because the Kurds are so pro-American. Mm-hmm. They love us. They have loved us ever since the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
When at the end of the first Gulf War, they tried to do their uprising and they tried to get their autonomy, and Saddam sent helicopter gunships up there and chemical weapons and tried to annihilate it. And we enforced an order of no-fly zone and put a stop to that. I mean, Peshmerga is a term that's used to describe their military, but that's a term that they use for us as well. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. Yep. The Kurds will refer to Americans as Peshmerga as well, because we fight and defend them just like their own people do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. Give them the support that they need to take care of this themselves, as France did for us during our revolution.
Mm-hmm. It's actually a really good comparison. Yeah. It actually applies in so many different levels. And this kind of brings us. This sort of brings us into where we're getting into foreign policy type discussion now. I have been extremely critical of our current administration and their foreign policy. I think it's been dangerous. I think it has set back on so many ways. And, again, I just want to know kind of where you stand, and because there's been this shift. For years and years, America was, the superpower of superpowers. We were leaders on the world stage, and now we have folks like Vladimir Putin, who is, wholeheartedly doing his own agenda, but he's destroying us in the public relations realm, and he looks like a rose in so many issues, and we've kind of been relegated to
like
this.
A leader.
Yeah. Okay.
He looks like a leader. Mm-hmm. And it's that simple. On the world stage, you put Vladimir Putin next to Barack Obama, and Putin looks like a leader. And Obama looks utterly out of place. Obama does not have the respect of the global community. Mm-hmm. Much as he was celebrated and much as the world wanted to weigh in on our elections in 2008, they're not the ones that have to live with the consequences. A weak America does nothing for the world. Mm-hmm. And I think the world has started to understand that a weakened and sympathetic, apologetic, genuflecting United States of America is no one's friend. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest problem we have right now. We haven't been a good friend to anyone.
That was actually going to be
none of our traditional allies.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. You're hitting it on the head here. How do we repair those relationships? I mean, you look at countries like Israel, pretty much our longest standing ally in that region. But then you can even take it abroad and look at so many of our allies, and we have not been, like you say, we haven't been the best best partners with them. How do we repair that relationship and still keep a focus on what's best for America? Because I think that's the real challenge here.
We have to be resolute in who we are, and we have to take a stand. The United States of America was based on the simple fact that all human beings are born with certain inalienable rights. Our rights do not come from the government. The Constitution does not give us our rights. The Constitution acknowledges our fundamental human rights that the government has absolutely no right to interfere with. And where we make our relationships around the world should be driven by who we are. We're going to give most favored trading status or most favored nation status to a country with an abysmal human rights record? That's insane. What does that say about us?
Hmm.
Obviously, we don't put our money where our mouths are, and we don't act as a government the way that the Constitution says we should act. We need to restore what our own values are, and we need to carry those out across the world. And that doesn't mean that we need to take an imperial turn and start bombing the snot out of every saber-rattling third world country.
Mm-hmm.
When you're the strongest nation on earth, you don't need to do that. Everybody knows you can do that. What you need to be able to do is be the friend your friends need you to be.
Yeah, I mean, it seems so simple, but this is something that we've gotten so far away from.
Yeah, when Paris had their terror attacks a couple of years ago,
mm-hmm.
every world leader showed up in solidarity against terrorism except Barack Obama.
Right.
How do we allow that to happen?
Yeah, and that's not the only instance. I mean, it's happened several times, and
no, that's just the one that stands out most in my mind. At least,
right.
You know, as we're talking about global events.
Mm-hmm.
But people have got to understand and accept some very simple realities about American politics. And the first of which is, 2012 presidential election. You know how much money was spent on that election between all candidates? About $6 billion.
Wow.
That did not come from you and me.
No.
The American people did not donate $6 billion so that these people could run for president. The majority of that money comes from corporations and special interests. That's not free money. Corporations and special interests do not lay out that kind of money unless they have some kind of a return on investment expected.
Right. They didn't become successful businesses by giving stuff away. Yeah.
Then you wonder why we spend 15 years in an oil-rich region spending millions and millions of our own dollars, not only in aid, but in the resources required to support and sustain that mission, with the justification that we're over there chasing terrorists.
Mm.
No, that's not why we're there. That's not why we went in the first place, and that's certainly not why we're still there. We're there because someone who donated heavily to their campaigns profits by our presence there, or they have interests that need to be protected.
Mm.
And that is the one thing that I can assure everyone who's listening will not be a component of Veterans Party of America. The only money I have accepted from anyone is from voters.
And that's a stark difference, between any of the other parties. I mean, and I always say follow the money, and that will lead you to a lot of the agendas and what's driving a lot of these issues. And
absolutely.
I
saw something recently that the top 200 politically active companies in the United States donated over the last 5 years, have donated $5.8 billion to political campaigns.
Wow.
and in return have received $4.4 trillion of corporate welfare and tax breaks.
I mean, that's
just the top 200.
Yeah, you want to talk about a payback? I mean, that's a no-brainer on their end.
That's an astronomical return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, it's tax money, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt anybody.
It hurts
your
folks
money
like
and my
you and
money
me.
and everybody else's money.
Right.
Huh? But
Yeah,
we can't afford decent schools, and we can't afford more police on the street. Somebody wants to get excited because a particular candidate says, well, if I'm elected, I'll put 100,000 more police officers on the street. How does that break down across the country? Is like one in each community?
Right.
100,000 police officers is not even a drop in a bucket
to
the crime problem in this country.
You know, and we're talking, you know, some economic type issues now. And at the start of this, you know, you had mentioned one of the things that kind of drove the the creation of the Veterans Party was the budget, the nation's budget being balanced on the backs of warfighters. And, you know, we're seeing it again with, you know, with cuts to the military. I mean, the Army's losing, you know, at least 40,000 troops. You know, they're cutting the Navy. I mean, we hear stories of special forces, you know, not having to share weapons. I mean, how do we pass, you know, a balanced budget and still maintain the best trained, best equipped, and most powerful military in the world?
Well, we start by making sure that we aren't paying $4.4 trillion in kickbacks to corporations and special interests who donate to political parties.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, you're talking...
How
you know,
much more money do we have to put toward defense when we're not allowing that stuff in the budget any longer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a straightforward and easy way to look at things. Now, why do you think they're always so quick to go to defense spending? I mean, I always go back to my last deployment.
Depends on who it is.
Okay.
Right now you have a Democrat president.
Mm-hmm.
You go back historically 100 years, and that's what you're going to find since Kennedy. So not 100 years, let's go back 50 years.
Yeah.
Since Kennedy, electing a Democrat to the presidency ensures that the military will be downsized. That's what they do. They always cut the military to pay for social programs.
Right.
Put a Republican in office, and typically what you get is the opposite. The social programs get cut, the community spending gets cut, and it gets dumped back into the military. I'm saying we don't necessarily need to change anything, except we need to spend more wisely. I'm not asking for a bigger military budget. What I would like to see this country do, and what I propose to do, is instead of spending $2 billion on an aircraft, we take that $2 billion and see what it takes for Lockheed Martin or for Boeing or for somebody else to retool and continue production on proven airframes that have lasted 40 and 50 years for this country and are still state-of-the-art. If I can get 20 F-15s for the price of one F-35, I'll take 20 F-15s, please.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's strength in numbers, and just like you try to spend, you know, your most crucial needs when you're shopping for your home, be it groceries or fuel or whatever. We have to kind of approach the government the same way, is kind of what you're saying, right?
Exactly. We need to get more bang for our buck, and to reconstitute our military from the state that it's in currently, we don't need $1-2 billion aircraft at a time. We need to increase the numbers for the budget that we have. We need to reconstitute our forces, and we can do that with existing technologies. The rest of the world is not catching up to us that fast. And we've already proven in recent combat, modern warfare, that the existing technologies that we already have, some of which have been in place since the 60s and 70s, we're talking about 60s and 70 model